like to save the world. Okay.
The clock is ticking faster. Am I awake? It seems the world keeps turning, but I'm stuck in place. I ain't no hero, can't fight crime. Can hardly fight for peace of mind. 'Cause I'm no blossom, I can't come in. I can't be joyful like bubble skin. I got no grip, I'm not buttercup. I'm not as tough, am I enough? I wish that I could turn back time. So can we go back to what it used to be? Like ice cream trucks and watching cartoons on TV. So can we go back to what it used to be? Where there's no expectations on what makes me me. So can we go back?
Popsicles like Powerpuff popsicles, Powerpuff popsicles like Powerpuff pop. This sounds like Powerpuff popsicles like Powerpuff popsicles, Powerpuff popsicles like Powerpuff pop. This sounds like Powerpuff popsicles like Powerpuff popsicles, Powerpuff popsicles like Powerpuff pop. This sounds like Powerpuff popsicles like Powerpuff popsicles, Powerpuff popsicles like Powerpuff pop. This sounds like.
It should be easy for me. Just make a move. The real world just ignores me. Are my dreams too big for you? I know that I should really try.
This stinks!
But if I fail, then who am I? It's like, who am I if not wise enough? And who am I if not flying tough? Is why do I just despise myself? Am I enough? Am I enough? I wish that I could turn back time. Can we go back to what it used to be? Like ice cream trucks and watching cartoons on TV. So can we go back to what it used to be? Where there's no expectations on what makes me me. So can we go back?
I told you that kid's weird. He's talking to himself.
There's nothing wrong with talking to yourself. Well, I don't know about that. What do you mean? It's kind of weird. It's not. It's too. It's not. It's too. It's not.
I can't save me. How can I save the world? Oh, why can I not be a Powerpuff girl? I can't save me. How can I save the world? Oh, why can I not be a Powerpuff girl? Cause I know blossom, I can't come in. I can't be joyful like bubble skin. I got no grip, I'm not buttercup. I'm not stuff, am I enough?
Powerpuff popsicles like Powerpuff popsicles, Powerpuff popsicles like Powerpuff pop. This sounds like
Blossom, I can't come in. I can't be joyful like bubble skin. I got no grip, I'm not buttercup. I'm not stuff, am I enough?
Powerpuff popsicles like Powerpuff popsicles, Powerpuff popsicles like.
So can we go back?
So, that is how I help save the world with my sisters, the Powerpuff Girls.
I don't think I'm okay. the way. I'm flying off of my spaceship. I don't think I'm okay. Think I'm about to go ape shit. Everyone clear the way. I'm flying off of my. I get up in the morning like, wow, another day on this fucking planet. Anything you want, you can grab it. As long as you got the money, you can go ahead and cash it. So you work from 9 to 5, because that's the only way to keep the body alive. Just work from 9 to 5, work from 9 to 5. Get you screaming like,
I am not okay.
hands to the sky if you really want to die. Just
Dissociate.
let's pretend we're on a cloud with rainbows.
I am not okay.
Feel like you could cry, but you really don't know why. Just
Dissociate. Dissociate.
I don't think I'm okay. Think I'm about to go ape shit. Everyone clear the way. I'm flying off of my spaceship. I don't think I'm okay. Think I'm about to go ape shit. Everyone clear the way. I'm flying off of my. Went to school for how many years? Learned to write my letters in here. But no one told me I would need to regulate the things that hold me hostage in an ocean of fear. Yeah, I can barely hold all the weight. I'm knocking down the stuff on my plate. If you're like me, you're not feeling great. Well, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Yeah.
I am not okay.
Hands to the sky if you really want to die. Just
Dissociate.
I think clouds are sentient beings.
I am not okay.
Feel like you could cry, but you really don't know why. Just
Dissociate. Dissociate.
I don't think I'm okay. Think I'm about to go ape shit. Everyone clear the way. I'm flying off of my spaceship. I don't think I'm okay. Think I'm about to go ape shit. Everyone clear the way. I'm flying off of my. I don't think I'm okay. Think I'm about to go. Everyone clear the way. I'm flying off of my. I don't think I'm okay. Think I'm about to go. Everyone clear the way.
I think clouds are sentient beings.
Flying off of my spaceship. Think I'm about to go ape.
Hello! Hi, friends. That was kind of loud. Hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone. One, how is my audio? Two, go ahead and say hello to everyone in the chat. I'm gonna scoot closer, though I'm not making my audio dumb. Actually, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is switch around my monitors, so I'm talking into the microphone. I don't think there's like a Unicult specific Bandcamp. I know some of the songs are on YouTube. I can go ahead and upload some of the other songs. There are some things that I kind of want to re-record. But yeah, I have a few songs that are just kind of sitting off in the ether that I'll kind of throw on YouTube so you guys can listen to them more often. But hello. Go ahead, say hello to friends in the chat. Make sure you have water. Go ahead and bless your water and give your water a good drink. You can say, I love you, I honor you, thank you. You can also sing to your water. You can go, ooh, and then you can drink it. Water holds memory, which is why we do that. And there, my water bottle's covered in lipstick. That's extra memories. Oh yeah, we have the hymns Bandcamp. Boop, boop, boop. Give me a second to get everything together and also to open up the YouTube channel on my computer. Right now I have you guys on my phone, and so I'm reading you all from a very small screen, which is not very conducive. It is not how you say cash money. So let's make you guys bigger. Okay. Not to talk about the weather, but how is everybody doing with the weather? Because it's raining on my end. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Shelby, your water has kombucha. I have a friend who just gave me a SCOBY earlier this weekend. A SCOBY is the mother for kombucha. It's like the catalyst that kind of creates your kombucha. So I started a batch a couple of days ago. So the first fermentation will be ready next Friday, and then I'll be able to add like some fruits and stuff to it to get some carbonations. I'm really excited. Yeah, we are just getting the first bit of sunlight this weekend. But yeah. Okay. If we have rain, that's beautiful because rain helps our plants. If we have sun, that's beautiful because sunshine feels good on our skin. Either way, it's a win-win situation. Um, Let's also dive into some prayers. Throw some prayers in the chat. And as you throw your prayers in the chat, I will go ahead and get us started with our announcements. Some of y'all have already started, which is amazing because you all are amazing. And understand and remember that today is $7 Sunday. So that means for $7 Sundays, go ahead and give your spiritual equivalent of $7. So that can be 77 cents. That could be $7.77. That could be $77. That could be a solid $7 like we had before. That could be $10 like Justin. Thank you so much, Justin. And whatever $7 means to you, you can go ahead and donate that and you can send your prayer in that way. But you can also just send your prayers in as is. That works perfectly fine because Space Heaven does not discriminate. All right. Oh, thanks, Shelby. Do we call each other unis? Like a YouTube or not a YouTube fandom name, but a general fandom name. Our name should be the Unis. Hello, Unis. That's cute. I like it. Yeah, go ahead and send in your donations, send in your prayers. If you are not a member of Unicult and you would like to join Unicult, you can go on our super cool website called joinunicult.com. You can also go on un1b3 or s3.com. They're both the exact same website. So you can go to joinunicult.com and you can learn a bit more about Unicult. We are a real cult. We have a cult application on our Etsy. It's $11.11 to join. And yeah. So please go ahead and join Unicode if you haven't done so already. We also have a new book, that you can go ahead and purchase as well. That is on Amazon, and it has a lot of our hymns and rituals that are on there, and it's been a pretty nice hit. And yeah. Let me see. We have a lot of cool things that are happening in the server. We have our Unicult Manifestation Mastery taught by yours truly that you can go ahead and join on Tuesdays and Thursdays. A lot of y'all asked when are the recordings coming out. Now that I have access to the channel, I've infiltrated the Unicult YouTube channel. Now that I have access to the Unicult channel, I can actually upload a lot of the recordings that I've done. There's some that I want to redo because, as some of y'all know, my audio has been recently. So I want to redo it so you guys are able to actually fully hear what's going on. And also, let's see. We're going to be doing a streamathon or a screamathon for Halloween. And there's going to be more information on that starting in October. So please be on the lookout for that. We're going to be doing a 24-hour screamathon. We also are going to be having a special guest who's going to be leading Cam Church for us, and they've never led Cam Church before, so I think it'll be a really fun time for them to lead Cam Church during our spookiest month for Halloween. Let's see. What else? And I think those are some of the main announcements that we have so far. I'm going to go ahead and read some of these prayers. Please go ahead and keep sending your prayers into the chat, and I'll keep reading what you guys got. We have prayers for all the cute kitties in the chat. We have prayers for the animals, prayers for all the activists out there. Uh, is the planner available on the Etsy still? I believe the planner is, yeah. Okay, Erin sent a link to the planner. Yes, the planner is still available. Shelby sent a link to the prayers and Thank you so much, Shelby. So yeah. Let's see. Uh, I'm gonna go ahead and send out prayers for everybody who is out in the rain, especially for people who are unhoused who might be out in the rain. I'm going to head and send prayers that we all are happy and abundant. We're praying for Unicole and the Uni Baby. Yes, prayers for Unicole and the Uni Baby. Prayers for the weather. Prayers for positivity. Prayers for the future of Unicult. Yes, yes, yes. Keep sending them in. I love it. I love the energy. Um, Prayers for more UFO disclosures. Prayers for like actual real aliens. Um, Not whatever that weird skeleton thing they tried to convince us was an alien was. Prayers for actual aliens. I don't even want a skeleton. I want one to be on TV to be like, hey guys, it's me, your boy. You guys have been talking about me. I heard you guys have been talking about me. I'm so flattered. Thanks. Prayers for the future of Uniacres. Prayers for new technology. Prayers for whoa. Whoa, you guys just sent a lot. I love that. Prayers for all of us here and those who aren't. Prayers for Unicole and the Uni Baby's health and happiness. Prayers for Uniacres and the Uni Church manifesting new technology, the future of Uniacres. Prayers for Space Freckle. Thank you. And yeah. Okay, so let's jump into our sermon for today. Whoop, 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 whoop. There's a couple of things that I want to talk about. So today's sermon, we're going to be talking about pop spirituality, also known as the Yassification of spirituality, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into what that means as well. I also have a little bit of a PowerPoint that I made because there was a lot of different examples that I wanted to show as I discussed this, but also with that being said, expect minor technical difficulties as I switch back and forth between the scenes, and you guys have to woo, see my iPad fall over and make really loud noises, and you guys have to deal with like the audio and me switching back and forth. So expect the technical difficulties. It will happen. You'll be like, "Where'd she go?" I'll be like, I don't know, the void, I guess. So anyway, yes, today we're going to be talking about pop spirituality, or as I like to call it, the yassification of spirituality. So if you've never heard that term, the yassification, what it means to yassify something is the act of making someone or something gayer or more girl boss. The term yassification comes from the phrase yas or yas queen, which originated in the ballrooms of New York City. Ballroom culture is originated by the Black, trans, and queer community. However, this phrase, along with many others, have been co-opted by a white majority, and its origins have been erased. We call the usage of terms like this like TikTok slang or Gen Z slang, but we never give credit to the community who originated the term. We never spotlight them. And so if you think about it and you think about the last person in your life who said the phrase yas queen or slay or period or you better work, if there are any people in your life who even use those terms, and go ahead and think about what do they look like? Where do they come from? Do they have any deep connection other than queerness, if there is any queerness to the term? You know? And obviously, I know this isn't some like deep philosophical question like, oh my gosh, who in your life uses the word yas? That's not a deep question. And I promise I'm not going to spend the whole sermon talking about like who can and cannot say yas queen. But I make this point to help carry us into a bigger picture, the meat and potatoes of the discussion. In this case, when we say spirituality being yassified, we're not saying it's being made more gay. Spirituality was already pretty gay, but that's a whole other conversation. I want to focus on the girl boss aspect of spirituality and in relation the whitewashing of the spiritual movement. What does it feel like to be a person of color in this space? What does it feel like to be a working class person of color in this space where the people who are your teachers are white women pulling close to six-figure salaries, sometimes millions of dollars, taking practices cultivated by indigenous communities wrapping it up in a nice little course and selling it to you in pretty millennial pink packaging for hundreds, potentially thousands of dollars. And what does it mean when little to no regard are given to the people whose ancestors originated from the practice other than this practice came from the ancient people of blah, 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 and I learned this while on my retreat in Costa Rica? Like, yeah. I understand my audience, and I understand that in an audience that usually jumps from anywhere from 15 to 20 people that are watching or who will watch this stream, it is most likely that I am one of the few people, if not only people of color here. I would be lying if I said that the act of discussing a topic that so heavily affects the BIPOC community to a primarily white audience does not spike my anxiety. I've had people who I thought cared about me disregard my concerns of this topic or anything that is similar to my discussions of this topic. I was told to silence my cries of Black Lives Matter in a time where I, a person living in the capital of the Confederacy, was afraid to go out and play on the playground of the elementary school that I once attended because I was afraid the police officer might see me in a space they didn't think I belonged, despite it being summer, a time where people in my neighborhood, young and old, play on the playground because school is not in session. I was afraid an officer might see me, shoot me first, and ask questions later, if I were alive to even answer anything. I was told to silence my cries because they'd been seeing posts like that everywhere and it was annoying to them. I'm afraid I'll look at the chat and see a string of racial slurs or pushback in the same vein as the person who told me to delete my post because it made them uncomfortable. This is incredibly personal to me and has been something I've been thinking on and observing for several years, so you'll have to excuse me if I become emotional, but you have to understand this affects me directly. This isn't some vague injustice to me. This is my life, so it hurts a lot more to witness this phenomenon. But I'm speaking on this despite my fear because this is something that affects a lot more than just me. It also affects members of Unicult. In fact, I'll even be challenging the aesthetic and demographic of Unicult in this very sermon. I want to say what a lot of BIPOC people really want to tell you, but may not have the words to express. I'm saying this in hopes that you will not only listen to what I have to say on this topic, but actually act on what I'm saying. Marginalized people are long past the point of asking for allies in our fight for recognition and equality. We don't want pity parties. We don't want you to say that's really messed up. Yeah, that's so true. And then go on about your day. By the time I'm done with this sermon, you will know actionable ways in which you can help change the narrative in a way that centers marginalized people. We do not want allies. We do not want you to just stand by with words I am saying for you today. We do not want you to do nothing with the words that I am saying today. I do not want you to do nothing with the words that I am saying today. We do not want allies. We want accomplices. And this speech means nothing if you do not act on what I'm about to disclose to you. So, without further ado, let's discuss the Yassification, or girl bossification, or also known as the contemporary whitewashing of wellness and spirituality. All right. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and switch my OBS because I actually have a Canva presentation that I kind of did here. Just because there's a few things that I want to show you guys. So you have to excuse me if my audio cuts out for a second. And I will do that. Okay, am I back? Are we back in business? Can you hear my word? Do you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? Hopefully. Do 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 do. I think we're good. Okay, cool beans, cool beans, cool beans. The name of the baby is Uni baby's name is Apollo. Wow, I'm really glad I knew that off the top of my head. Wow. Unicole, whatchamacallit? Unicult trivia, iconic. Wow. Pew, pew, pew. Okay, I'm gonna move my camera a little bit because I'm gonna be talking towards here and I want you guys to be able to hear what I gotta say. Okay, so we're gonna be talking about the Yassification or contemporary whitewashing of spirituality by me, Space Freckle. Hi. It's another Canva original. So, a couple of things that I want to talk about. When I mean the girl bossification, what does that even mean? The aesthetic of a girl boss in this instance is this sort of aesthetic, the millennial pink, this whole pink aesthetic, the sort of cultural appropriation of a lot of things that exist within spiritual practices. So if we look at like 8 insanely useful girl boss habits for success that are practical and spiritual, the use of a shirt that says spiritual gangsta, and then there's no like context behind it, and it's like, well, what are you talking about? What does that mean for you? You know, the really the use of the phrase like girl boss bracelets when it's like these are called mala beads, by the way. If you've ever seen these beads, a lot of people like to wear them kind of like stacked bangles at this point, which is perfectly fine. I want to assert that, and we'll get into that as well. But um, yeah, the use of the term like being like, no, these are girl boss bracelets when these are actually used in a way of practicing meditation. It's almost like people use a rosary, how you count the prayers on the rosary. This is for mala beads, they're used for you to count um your mantras, which is why you have the different different beads at certain points to kind of be like, okay, now you're here, and now you're here, and now you're here. Like it's used as a mantra counter. It's used for meditation. So to just dilute that practice down to these are girl boss bracelets and these are just cute jewelry, it can be insensitive. Um, but one thing that I really want to assert here when we talk about the girl boss aesthetic, which we'll talk about later in the presentation, because this is one thing that we'll get to, is that this is bigger than just a racial thing. This affects all of us. Um, is the use and glorification of money behind this. You'll notice where it's like mood CEO, and it's just like six figures or billionaire or millionaire. Like I'm just trying to make money, 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 be a gold digger, all of these habits for your success, be stronger than your excuses, and then just really just shoving spirituality behind that. We'll talk about that a bit more. But I also want to jump into this video. Oh my gosh, we have different forms of media that are discussing what is spirituality when we define it, like spiritual appropriation. What does that even mean? So I'm going to go ahead and play this. Hopefully my audio is good. And yeah, let's jump into this.
From honoring them, uplifting them when it comes to spirituality. So, to break it down even further, what do I mean by that? I mean spiritual cultural appropriation or cultural spiritual appropriation is when you take bits and pieces from people's sacred and long practices, bits and pieces. You take them, you adopt them, you use them for your purposes. You do not learn what the whole practice is. You do not honor what that whole practice is. Oftentimes you weren't invited into that practice. You happen to learn of something about that practice. It resonated with you, so you took it. One of the most common ways that this happens is the burning of sage. I know there's a lot of you who heard that and they're like, but I burn sage to keep the bad energy out. I burn sage to keep the negative spirits away. I burn sage because I learned it was a good thing. I know. But let's get into how that's wrong and messed up. And before we go on, honey, I've been a victim of this too. I've burned a fair amount of sage in my day. So I'm not judging you from above. This is some things that I learned. This is some things that I had to unlearn. And now I'm inviting you to the table to do the same. The burning of sage, where does this come from? This practice in particular comes from Native Indigenous people who were stewards on this land, the United States. I'm in the United States. You might be somewhere different, but I'm in the United States. So the burning of sage, this was something that the people of this land, the Native Indigenous people of this land used. It was a practice that they used to clear energy. It was a practice that they used in their spiritual practice, a very sacred practice. But did you know that most Native American people were not able to practice their sacred religions and spiritual practices until 1970 and in some cases 1980. This means they were not able to participate in dancing. They were not able to participate in the many other spiritual practices that are associated with them, because I'm not going to act like I know every single Native American practice. What I do know is that they were banned from practicing their magic. They were banned from practicing something that has been in their lineage, that is their birthright. They were banned from practicing that until 1970 to 1980. This practice of burning sage comes from the Native Indigenous people of America. They were not able to practice their own faith until 1980.
I just kind of played that a little bit to really break down and drive home what that means for a lot of people who are indigenous and people of color. And one thing that I will assert that we'll talk about, like in literally 2 slides if it's coming up, is that this does not mean if you are not a person of color that you're not allowed to practice. This does not, I also want to discuss that there are different magical practices and spiritual practices from all over the world, including Europe and European practices as well. So I want to assert that. But what that I'm really talking about here is when we dive into other people's culture and we don't fully understand what is going on in the history behind that. And I want to say that this isn't a call to be like, don't dare burn sage. Like, I have sage and I use sage within my practice. Of course, making sure that whenever sage that you get, it's ethically sourced. That's the biggest thing. And it's going to tie into our discussion on how this bleeds into capitalism. What does that mean? Because the biggest issue as to why burning sage has become so harmful is because it's become a trend. You can go to Five Below and buy sage now. It's become something that's, it's a commodity. No longer is it something that's a spiritual practice. It's a commodity. We want that so we can, do what they said on TikTok or Pinterest. And, you just take it, you burn a little, you wave it around, clear out bad energy, yay. But we don't understand, where did that come from? Who was this practice kept away from, and for how long, and what does that mean for those people? Those voices aren't centered. And so that's just kind of a bit of a way to kind of understand this next part that I want to show you. I have a couple videos. This one's definitely a little bit shorter. But one thing that she's going to talk about is that sense of anger that comes up when you're a person of color in a room listening to somebody explain to you something that maybe your own culture, and I'll talk about a little bit on my experience as well, but I wanted to play this as an example.
So a while back, I was at a social event thing and I was with a group of people I had just met. And there was a white woman who had just shared this fantastic new fitness class she had done. And she said, I went to something, and I'm, for anonymity's sake, let's call it body pump yoga. And I looked at her, and in my head, I'm like, WTF? I looked at her and I politely asked, so what's body pump yoga? And she went on to explain that it was a combination of body pump, where you're using weights to build your muscles, and then intermittently are then doing yoga stretches. And it was so fantastic. And her instructor had like put it all together and pulling some yoga practices in that she loved and blah, blah, blah. And all I know is that I was feeling through my body a combination of what the F and instant activation, irritation, and rage, quite frankly. So I get asked a lot about what are my thoughts about the cultural appropriation of yoga, basically how yoga is being adapted in the Anglo world, in Canada, the US, the UK. And I think I get asked this because I'm brown, my parents are from India, South Asian, I am a trained yoga teacher. I am a diversity and inclusion expert, and then I also am a social justice activist. And here's what I would say to you. I have a really hard time. It really sucks watching what's happening with yoga out there, and I want to talk openly about it. It's hard for me because, number one, yoga is so beautiful, and I think it's so great that it's spreading globally and through the masses. It means union, and I love the way in which it's bringing people together and actually helping them to live better lives. However, what I found really, really challenging is the way in which yoga has now become so watered down in the Anglo world. Yoga is an Indian or South Asian practice that has very strong traditional and cultural roots to it. But what we have now been seeing in the Anglo world is the misuse of language, stripping the practice of its holistic nature, not using the correct terms, not mentioning the Indian roots, and so much more. In other words, what we're basically seeing is the whitewashing of yoga, which is cultural appropriation. So what do I want to have happen instead? I want us to teach yoga. I want us to study yoga, but I want us to talk about the Indian roots. I want us to study the Indian roots and spread the Indian roots and the traditions in a very authentic way. What do you think? I'd love to.
So, yeah, I think especially the part that she talks about when, and this is Ritu Basin, and she is a yoga instructor, and like she said, she's also a diversity and inclusion expert as well. But one thing that I really appreciate that she talks about is that sense of anger, because I've definitely felt that. I've been to many a spiritual retreats. I've been on my spiritual journey for over a decade, and I've gotten many certifications and just have studied. I've studied a lot of these practices, just not on just a spiritual level, but on a psychological level, on a scientific level, and just really understanding what all of this stuff means. And in my experience, I have almost always been the only person of color in the room at these retreats. And a big reason behind that is the price that we put on these. If you've ever been to a retreat like this, or even if you've just been to a yoga class, and I'll talk about that towards the final thoughts, but if you've ever been to any of these retreats, you know that they're anywhere from 200 to like several $1,000s is what a retreat like that can cost, which a lot of people cannot afford. And usually a lot of those people who cannot afford those are marginalized people and are people of color. Um, and then also, even diving into spirituality can in itself be a privilege. We'll talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs towards the end, but you can't get to that self-actualization portion until your basic needs have been met. And a lot of times marginalized groups are people whose basic needs who have not been met. So they don't even have time to learn about spirituality. A lot of that is spirituality that was within their own culture that they don't even have the time to learn about. Um, so yes, that sense of anger when you have somebody try to explain your own culture back to you. Um, and then following that up with towards the end, expressing that it's like it's not saying that nobody should then, learn about this practice. Because a lot of us, we want to share this practice. We want to share these different aspects of ourselves and our culture. As somebody who has grown up Haitian, I like sharing aspects of the spirituality and the culture that is behind me because I had to learn that on my own. And so I like sharing what I learned. Um, but it can really hurt when these things are being shared and then it gets taken and is sent off to other people and taught to other people for hundreds and thousands of dollars. Um, like a prime example of this I'll get before we move on. Similar with the appropriation, especially of Indian culture, is something like Mudwater. Mudwater, the founder of Mudwater was this guy, who's this guy from like the US who just like took a trip over to India and was like, wow, this is really good. Wow, you guys make this? And like this tea that is made is very cheap stuff, you know? Like, oh wow, you guys make this, you sell it on the street? That's pretty good. And then just went back to America and then just made the entire thing. There's tons of posts on social media of people in the Indian community being like, what is this? You can make this cheaply. And they've actually, um, in the spirit of sharing, a lot of people who are like, hey, you guys don't buy this stuff. You can make this really cheaply. Here is the recipe. In the spirit of sharing is like, enjoy the mud water. Have that. It's delicious. It's great. Here's a recipe on how to do it yourself cheaper, where you can also go to international markets and support people of color, and you're supporting your own wallet as well. And that's going to kind of take us into our next portion after we talk about this last person. It's going to take us into our next portion where we talk about how this is bigger than just affecting people of color. This also affects all of us. And it ties into just the bigger thing of capitalism as a whole and what that does for us. Resist says the weekly yoga class at law school is three of us. Two black women and me. The leader is a lawyer and also a yoga teacher. So he was teaching us the last session about some of the cultural roots of yoga. And that's awesome. I love that. I love that. Um, like I think there's like a black yoga teaching collective, because that's a huge thing, particularly in the black community. Spirituality is heavily rooted in fear. I talked a little bit about it during a devoted member meeting, but uh, spirituality within the black community is heavily rooted within fear, just because the way in which we were taught Christianity ancestrally was taught through fear. In our case, we had all of these cultures. Me as a Haitian, um, my spiritual practice was used as a weapon against our oppressors, the people who enslaved my ancestors utilized voodoo as a weapon. They were to curse their masters and use their practices to provide protection and safety as they led a revolt, which was one of the first successful mass slave revolts that shook America and all of the other surrounding captive countries to their core. So spirituality and magic has very heavy ties for us. The biggest thing is that the biggest thing is that because of those spiritual practices and because of the fear that that instilled in the colonizers, they then took that and instilled that fear in people of color. And they were like, you guys need to go to church every Sunday. If you are not seen at church every Sunday, that is punishable. That is punishable by law. You could be executed for something like that. Um, or you could literally be beaten for not being at church or for trying to practice witchcraft, you know. So all of that was then in turn passed down to children because it's like, I don't want to see you practicing that. And then he beat that out of you because it's in order to keep them safe. It's like they can't see you doing that. If you do that, then they're going to beat you harder than I will. And so it passes on. So there's a lot of pain that is in spirituality, which is why I know people who are afraid to go to a yoga class because they're like, am I worshiping the sun god? Am I going to be allowed to do that? Right? And flip top is definitely, that's so true. Like everything is structurally based in fear, which is why people are so afraid of spirituality as a whole. And it's like rooted in Christianity, in which Christianity in itself is rooted in fear as well. Um, and yeah, but this is the last person that I want to talk about before we dive into the capitalist aspect of all of this. This is Ananya Pandey, and she is a 24-year-old Indian actress. She primarily works in Hindi films, but she also did a little bit of writing. And so this is a little bit of an excerpt from her essay, and it is on the contemporary cultural appropriation of the contemporary whitewashing of spirituality. And this is another person, like I said, she's also Indian. So she states, people would make fun of my parents' accents, or the gross food I brought in for lunch. You can imagine my frustration when I saw aspects of my culture being turned into a trend for those who made fun of me and they decided to blindly follow it. My issue isn't that people are participating in these sorts of things. If you want to get more in touch with your spirit, go ahead. If manifesting is something that interests you, please by all means do your research and participate. I'm more so frustrated with the lack of respect and representation for people who brought these customs over to the West in the first place. When I go to the manifestation hashtag on TikTok, most of the top people on it are white, and none of them are South Asian or seem to be practicing Hinduism or Buddhism, two religions that brought wellness and spirituality over to the West. Most of the Western spirituality is just whitewashed Hinduism. Manifestation, law of attraction, and meditation all come from Eastern religions, yet they are never credited, and instead are rebranded to focus on Western audiences. Yoga and manifestation are just two very prominent examples of the ways that Hinduism and South Asian culture are appropriated and westernized. There are so many aspects of my culture that have been appropriated in the West, which leads to people with privilege economically benefiting from Hindu beliefs while we receive nothing. I'm not saying that if you don't practice Hinduism, you can't manifest or meditate or do yoga. I'm just asking that you try to be more mindful and respectful. If you want to practice a custom that is sacred, do your research on it beforehand. If you want to purchase wellness products, try to give money to authentic organizations that are founded by Hindus or Buddhists, rather than buying something faux and economically benefits our appropriators. Try to pay homage to cultural heritages that you owe so much to for your lifestyle and have some respect and empathy. Change begins with one step. All right. Justin, you said this is nothing new. As an elder, I can say I saw the same stuff through the 90s and early 2000s. You're old. No, you're like you're absolutely right. There are a lot of people as we transition over into kind of the grifter economy. There are a lot of people, especially in the 90s and 2000s. That is kind of the era, like between the 80s, 90s, and the early thousands. That's like the cult scare era. And a lot of those were people who were grifters, who were like, hey guys, join my cool looking spiritual movement, guys. Here, guys, just buy my book, guys. Just buy my supplement, you guys. All of this stuff where it's just like, where did you get this from? This doesn't align with the original aspect, and it's harmful to all of us. I really want to assert that. And this is what I want to talk about here. And I say, like, this isn't about race. It's not just about race. It's about the dangers of the colonialist mindset around spirituality. And like Justin said, it's been around for decades and it harms all of us. The person who is on this screen is actually somebody who is one of my teachers. Um, if I'm being completely honest, yeah, this was one of the people who um, I learned the most about manifestation from. So if you're in Unicult Manifestation Mastery, then a lot of what you're learning is taught by this person, Catherine Zenkina, who goes by Manifestation Babe. Um, and as I learned more about spirituality and I learned more aspects from different cultures, and really I'm just understanding the baseline understanding of a lot of this stuff, because a lot of us follow the same principles. We're teaching the same thing, just in different manners. At the base, we understand that spirituality and capitalism cannot coexist. So even though Manifestation Babe and Catherine teaches so much and has taught me so much, when I go and I teach that to other people, and if you've been in any of my classes in Unicole, you'll know I also say, hey, this quote, take that with a grain of salt, because we're not fully even acknowledging the sense of privilege that comes from that. Or like, yeah, listen to this, but this is just some BS. Just throw that out. I'm the type of person who will take teachings like this and then also break it down and make it more accessible to everybody, as opposed to trying to only allow certain people to benefit from my product because it's so, the word that's used is like, this is so such beneficial information, it is so worth it, it's actually worth millions of dollars, you should be lucky that I'm charging $1,000. And it's like, people who need it the most cannot afford that. But one thing that I really want to assert here, which is why I posted a lot of these pictures, is that manifestation and mindfulness and gratitude and all of that is usually used as a means, or is peddled as a way to get rich quick. It's mindset, manifestation, money, um, worthiness, the nervous system regulation, and conscious capitalism, which is basically how to participate in capitalism while not being super mean, which is impossible. Um, and then, motherhood, multi-million dollar empires, and manifestation. We're peddling money. And I want to also assert two things. First of all, a big thing is when we look at these podcast guests, these are people of color. So I also want to assert that it's not just like, it's more than just race. Tons of people from different aspects of different cultures. We subscribe to capitalism. We subscribe to colonialist mindsets, because we're participating in this society. I am not immune. You are not immune. We are all not immune. This is why it's so dangerous, and this is why I want to talk about it, because it's bigger than just race. It affects all of us. There will be people of color who will hop on a podcast and be like, hey guys, capitalism is good, actually. We just have to be more nice. And then I also want to finish and say, money is like, it's okay to want money, because the bottom line is we live in a society where we need money, you know? So even behind me, I have, money candles on my altar. I have money oil. My roommate gave me a crystal where she's like, I know you're looking for a new job. Here you go. Here's that new job crystal. We live in society. We need money to live. So it's not a bad thing to use spirituality, to use witchcraft, to use these things as a means for money. But it gets to be an issue when a lot of these people are like, I'm going to use spirituality to better my business so I can be a CEO. I just want to be a CEO. Like, a huge person who is, or a big example of what this looks like when things get really bad, is Tim Gurner. If you've been kind of keeping up with like I wouldn't I guess the news, but like news is so broad these days, so it's like if you've been keeping up with certain aspects of internet news or whatever, Tim Gurner is the CEO. He's from Australia. You don't know him, but you know of his legacy. He's the guy who is the reason why people say millennials eating avocado toast is the reason why we're all poor. that's it. This is the guy. If you're like, who came up with that? This is the guy who came up with that. And recently he had another super hot take about the state of work and how we should actually be working and how we as people who are working should actually start to fear our employers more. He went really mask off. So I'm gonna show you more of this guy.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. They have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years, and we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40, 50% in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance.
So yeah. And there's a reason why I wanted to show this guy. Yeah, no, this guy, he has since apologized for his hot take, but the biggest thing with that is like it doesn't matter because the reason why he's apologizing is not because he realized that what he said was really messed up. It's because of the backlash. He wasn't apologizing because he actually felt bad. It's one of those things where it's like, no, you said what you said, meaning like when you said that, you meant what you said. So you apologizing, you're not apologizing because you're sorry, you're apologizing for PR reasons. And so, yeah, this is the guy who did the famous avocado toast debacle for millennials. That's the reason why we're all poor. The reason why you can't buy a house because of avocado toast. You heard it here first, folks. So yeah, that was his very mask off moment where he states he's like there needs to be more pain, there needs to be more fear. We need more layoffs. We need more people who are unemployed. And the reason for this is because capitalism cannot exist within the confine, like spirituality cannot exist within capitalism. But what I want to assert here, why I chose to post him, like, well, why post him? He's just some crappy CEO. What does that have to do with spirituality? He's heavily involved in the spiritual community. Heavily. There was a live stream from Wisecrack. Also, I invite you to watch it because like one of my comments was like talked about on Wisecrack, and Wisecrack has like several million subscribers, and they said my name. They're like, oh my gosh, yeah, like what Space Freckle said, these rich people don't see us like regular people as actual people. I'm like, wow, it's me. Hi. Yeah, that's why you couldn't buy a house, Aaron, because of the 100 avocado toast. Why'd you do that? Um, but I want to talk about this little bit of the clip. So, just for context, this Tim Gurner, he's really into breath work, and as a lot of you have known, I've taught breath work courses and stuff, and done breath work sessions for people. Tim Gurner is also super into breath work. He also like has people go into like these oxygen pods, those crazy things that a lot of people like to go into for spiritual experiences that cost a lot of money. It'll be like, oh, you want to do a session? Cool, that'll be $200. Nice, thank you. Um, Find your inner peace. He's one of those people who's really heavily into spirituality. And Michael Burns, the person who is doing this Wisecrack stream, discusses pretty on the nose like what we're trying to talk about here. So here he is.
Money to go in a 100-degree sauna. That sounds pleasant. Jesus. My personal breathing coach. This article is already killing me. This article is making me die. This article is pro-aging. I'm actively aging as I read every line of this BS. One of my favorite things is dudes like this. It's normally dudes or Gwyneth Paltrow, who appropriate spiritual practices, usually from traditions that posit that spiritual subjectivity is something that transcends materiality and participation in economic matters and things of that nature. They take those spiritual practices, they take all of these things that are meant to get people to some state of spiritual transcendence and use them to become better business boys. Guys, they use them to become better business boys. It's like, oh, I use Buddhist practices. You know, Buddhism, the thing about literally transcending material and economic relations and focusing on a spiritual state of nirvana. I use these things to help me like make unemployment rates go up. It's insane. Even
I think he did a really good job of just really like asserting the meat and potatoes of that, essentially what it means to be a person like Tim Gurner, who's like, you guys need to be more afraid. There needs to be more pain and suffering in the workforce. And then have that same person then turn around and go, so yeah, I did some really nice breath work, did some really good yoga, found my inner peace. It was really great, actually. I'm really behind all of these spiritual practices. I think it's super great. And just using all of that stuff to find your own inner peace and then turn around and create pain and turmoil for other people so you can get more money. Um, the last thing that I want to talk about here that really wraps everything up is this infographic. It's from the Slow Factory Foundation, which is a climate change, I believe they're a climate change nonprofit, and they also have, this is from their Instagram account. So this is on decolonizing wellness, and it's talking about the difference between individualism and collectivism, which is where a lot of us fall short and is a huge issue of what we don't understand when we go in and we appropriate these spiritual practices of in favor of spirituality, or in favor of capitalism. And Lexi makes a great point. It's like when your high school bully posts about how they're a mental health advocate now. There's always that meme where it's like your high school bully went into nursing and now they're a nurse. And you're like, what is your bedside manner? You used to treat me like I'm the worst person in the world. Hopefully, the difference is that at the very least, now that they're a mental health advocate, they also understand that like they don't do that anymore, hopefully, but I believe it's even worse with these CEOs because it's not even like, they were trash people and then they're like, actually, you guys, I found spirituality and I'm a decent person now. No, it's like I'm a trash person and I found spirituality, so now I'm like the same trash person, but I feel really good. You feel bad, that's a you problem, but I feel great. Why can't you just be like me? And that ties us into individualism versus collectivism. We're going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how it was introduced, how it introduced in pop psychology and like this whitewashed wellness. So when we talk about individualism, America is a very individualist society. Um, it's defined by the philosophy and the way of living that prioritize the individual over the community. This is a colonial ideology. It fuels the racist capitalist system. Most Western cultures are individualistic, and individual rights take higher precedence as depending on others is considered shameful. Um, and collectivism, on the other hand, is defined as the principle that prioritizes the needs of the community and the interconnectedness of people within a group over an individual. Most of the global south and indigenous cultures are collectivist. Working together and supporting one another to achieve the community's well-being is essential. And this also gives a caveat in saying like balance is key. Of course, there's a whole thing. You can't fill anybody else's cup if your cup isn't filled. Um, but you don't want it to be like, I look out for me and only me. It should be, I look out for me so I'm good enough that I can then look out for you and I can help you if there's anything that you might be lacking. But I'm taking care of myself so I can take care of others. You're not taking care of yourself just to take care of yourself because you're the only one who matters. Nobody else matters except for you. And as long as you're good, then everybody else can just figure stuff out on their own. That's not my problem. we live together in this world. Earth isn't a single player game. We're a multiplayer game. Um, and so, yeah, so balance is key. Extreme individualism and from Western cultures has contributed tremendously to social injustices and environmental exploitation. The profit and benefit of the individual is more valuable than well-being of the community and the ecosystem that they are hurting. See, really rich CEOs. And so we're going to talk about the Blackfoot belief, which is where the hierarchy of needs was founded, or what inspired the hierarchy of needs. So I'm going to actually come back to this. I'm going to jump to the hierarchy of needs, and then we're going to go back. So when we look at the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's always starting from the bottom, going up to self-actualization. So you have your physiological needs, your food, water, shelter, et cetera, et cetera. Your safety needs, then we go into the belongingness of and love, your self-esteem, and then finally self-actualization, which means like, your spirituality. You know who you are as a person. And then we just stop. We're like, I know me. I'm great. I'm enlightened. Or you, that's a you problem. But I am very enlightened right now. Okay, bye. We stop there. Meanwhile, when we look at the Blackfoot belief, it's not a triangle, it's actually a teepee. And they believe that the teepees reach up into the sky. But when we look at our hierarchy of needs, your food, water, shelter, oh my gosh, reality is it doesn't stop at self-actualization. Self-actualization is actually your base. So once you realize who you are, like we said, once you fill up your own cup and you understand who you are, you need to then take that into your community. You need to then go, okay, let's focus on our community. I know who I am. Does anybody need help understanding themselves? Does anybody need help understanding where you belong in this space? Let's help each other belong in this space, because me helping you helps me. We're all one. And all different cultures believe that on a different, from different aspects. And I don't say all cultures like we all do, because we just said there's individualist cultures, but all of the cultures that we're pulling our spiritual practices from, we believe that we're all one. But that gets lost when we try to erase that in favor of colonialist mindsets. We start with ourselves and then we take that into our community. We take what we learn into our community, we allow that to define our culture. When something like that defines your culture, you hold it, it's sacred. It's not just like, oh yeah, this is what we do. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Even within Unicult, we look at things that we do with each other. We hold that as sacred. When we leave each other, we say uni bless. We have different principles that we state all the time. When I said it's because we're all one, that pointed up some antennas in your ears, because those are your ears on your head, whatever, your antennas. And because that's something that we say a lot and that we try to really embody, because it is a cultural belief within Unicult. We hold it as sacred. And so that's why it's important to leave behind colonialist aspects of these things, to leave behind the girl boss aspect. I'm just here to make a lot of money so I can be rich and help my business, but also I don't care about anybody else within this. We need to leave behind that individualist mindset that ends with self-actualization and understand that the world is way bigger than yourself. Once you understand yourself, you need to help your community, all people within your community, not just people who look like you. And that in turn can help our culture. So, and this is just stating, like, although this was informed by Blackfoot Nation beliefs, so the hierarchy of needs was informed by Blackfoot Nation beliefs, Maslow's interpretation does not include the Blood First Nations understanding of community, ancestral knowledge, spirituality, multiple dimensions of reality, which are things that we teach within Unicult. I definitely think we should teach more of it, but it is good that we start here. But I will definitely say we want to teach more. And then the last thing I'll end with before I'll close this off and open it up to discussion is just this. When we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs through indigenous eyes, and this is a design, it's the same thing as this reinterpreted into a sort of Venn diagram, but it's stating that food, shelter, and water and security are great. Yes, you need that in order to live. and we talk about that, if you don't have your needs met, you can't fully start to understand your self-actualization and your spirituality to get to a point where you can start to discover yourself. Um, but once you get all that, then it's like, okay, let's take a look at your relationships. Let's take a look at who you're around. And then once you understand the culture of people who are around you and we treat each other kindly, then we can dive into our spirituality and fully understand, like, okay, these are all people who are around me. Where do I fall in line with these people? How do we all fall in line with each other, as opposed to who am I in the world? Only me. Me, 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 me. It's like, who are you within this culture? Who are you within this society? Who are you within your peer groups? Who are your peer groups within the larger scale of things? And I'll break off into big me, so give me a second. Let me change it so I'm not frozen. Um, Webcam, where'd you go? Okay, there we go. All right, I'm alive again. Okay, but to go ahead and close off this discussion, I really wanted to leave you all with some actionable items. Like I said, there's actionable ways in which you can actually go ahead and take this information and utilize it within your everyday. Some really good actionable things to do if you're looking and kind of going, how can I be mindful of my practice of spirituality and make sure that it's not coming from an individualist standpoint? How can I utilize my spiritual practices in a way that helps everybody, as opposed to just benefiting myself and then getting a bunch of money and then leaving, or not centering people of color and potentially teaching wrong things. Um, Take a look at your friend group. Like, literally, just take a look at people who are in your friend group. Who are people that you talk to most often? Who are people, like, if you were to go through your phone and look at different pictures, how many people of color are in your friend group? If you look at a picture of a bunch of a huge group of people within your life, how many people of color are in that picture? How many people of color are your actual friends that you talk to on a regular basis? Not just people where it's like, yeah, I know some people of color, but you don't actually talk to them. How many people of color that you talk to on a regular basis? If you take a look at that and you acknowledge and you're thinking back on your friend group and you're like, I don't have a lot of people of color in my friend group, that's a sign to diversify where you hang out, diversify the people that you talk to, and to expand your outreach to different cultures, because it's going to help you as well. You're going to learn from other people. You're going to learn other ways of thinking that you may not have fully acknowledged. If you're ever in a yoga class, or if you're ever in any sort of spiritual practice, take a look and be like, how many people in this class are people of color? Are there any of the instructors people of color? Um, Especially people of color from the actual culture that this practice is coming from. And all that does is to help you be more aware of things, because these are things that BIPOC people think about all the time, because you have to. When you look around, you're always reminded that people don't look like you. And so we think about this all the time. It's really helpful if you all start thinking about it as well, so we can all be on the same page and kind of acknowledge, like, hey, it's kind of weird that nobody who originated this practice is in this studio teaching this practice. Kind of feels, it's a little awkward. What's going on here? So you can also help call that out. That's another actionable thing that you can do. Um, if you are a spiritual practitioner yourself and you teach classes and teach courses, you can center these voices instead of teaching Ho'oponopono and just kind of being like, all right, this is a Hawaiian practice, I'm going to teach it now. Can you find somebody who's Hawaiian or Pacific Islander who teaches this practice? Can you pull up a video of somebody doing it? There's tons of videos on YouTube where there's actual people who are from the practice who are teaching this practice. Can you learn from that? Don't learn Ho'oponopono which, like I said, is the Hawaiian art of forgiveness. Don't just learn that from a random person on the internet who did not help originate that practice or does not have culture ties in that practice. Learn it from somebody who actually does. You're actually getting the information as legitimate information. So center voices for people of color and allow them to explain their culture, because they're going to do it in a way that benefits you in the long run because it's authentic. It's not just, watered down. So that's another way. And I really want to assert that as being the big way. If you have anything that you're doing where you're trying to make money from spirituality, make sure that you're centering people of color and make sure that you're paying them when you center them. If they're going to be helping to teach something within your course, pay them for their time. Um, and yeah, that's really the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about. Thanks y'all so much for coming out. I know this was a little bit of a longer one, but thank you so much for giving me time and space to talk about this. And I will see you guys later. Uni bless.